guys. Welcome to season 2 of the Spine Bookcast, Chronicles of a Bookshop. Thank you for coming back for season 2. So, welcome to episode 1. And episode 1 of season 2, we are talking to one of my favorite poets, Andi Kopek. He is one of our newest authors that we have in the bookshop, and he is going to open up season 2 for me. How are you doing, Andi?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me here.
You're absolutely welcome. So, as we do with every single season, or every single episode rather, how did you get into reading?
Reading?
Reading.
Oh, wow. That was a while ago. At school, I guess. That's what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yes, it's okay. Actually, I started reading in a pretty young age. I don't remember what was it exactly. I never remember the numbers. But I know that I would read earlier than other kids, right?
Okay. What did you read first? What do you remember reading?
I probably don't remember a lot of stuff, like very, very beginning. I don't remember my childhood that much.
Okay.
So I don't remember what was my first book or anything. But I know that I always liked reading and stories.
Sure.
In the books.
Sure.
And I like to read actually a lot about nature.
Okay.
And now when you ask me the question,
why nature?
I'm trying to think about it.
Sure.
More and more. So I think that was nature. Nature, like books describing different species of animals. Or one of my favorite books when I was a kid, and my parents loved that, was the Atlas of insects.
Okay.
So, for example, when I was, I don't know, 5, 6 years old,
Sure.
I would take the atlas with pictures of different bugs, right, and go into the woods and try to find them and determine what was it.
Okay. What was your favorite bug?
I don't think I had any favorite ones. Well, yeah, so I don't remember the names again, but like a big black one.
Sure.
Bigger and better, right? Because
Sure,
it's more impressive. So I found, and again, that was not the woods here in Nashville or Tennessee.
Where was it?
It was in Poland when I was born.
So
right?
now, what part of Poland are you from?
In the central part, right, called the Mazovia.
Okay.
Yeah. So the woods were mostly coniferous trees.
Okay.
The arid climate, a lot of sand in the ground. So there were bugs, whatever it is. I would probably need to go back and check for the names.
Okay.
Whatever the bugs were. I didn't find any insects or bugs repelling, rather fascinating, and I was captivating by them.
Okay.
Because they were so different than us.
Well, now how did you get from Poland to America?
Oh, well, that we're gonna take a little bit leap forward.
Sure.
Okay, not as a kid, but as a late student. So I came as a first exchange student, and then I work as a postdoc, and
I'm sorry, what?
First as a student, and then a postdoc.
What is a postdoc?
It's a postdoctorate.
Oh, postdoctorate. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
Postdoc,
okay.
Yeah, right. You would do a PhD, and after that, additional training.
Gotcha.
After that,
okay.
Right? So I was fortunate to be invited to work in a molecular biology laboratory.
Okay.
So I would do that as a career for a while. Yeah.
But now you write poetry.
Now I love poetry. I used to write poetry from whenever I could. Again.
Sure.
Going backwards. I loved writing poetry. Again, initially it was in Polish.
Sure.
As a teenager, I think a lot of teenage kids will write poetry. But I really enjoy that. And then even after coming to US, I would write poem from time to time, to the drawer. But then I decided about now 2 or 3 years ago that I really would like pick it up as a career.
Okay.
Publish something and be more serious about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so Andi and I met at the Southern Festival of Books this year.
That's right.
And he came up and introduced himself to me. And the cool thing about Andi is, so he has this poetry book. Now, tell me the name of your poetry book so that I don't mess it up.
Yes, the title is Shmehara.
Shmehara. And so, what I love about Andy's poetry book so much is that in this book, he also has illustrations that go with each poem. And along with the book that I have in the shop, I also have his prints. And his prints have a QRG code on the back. And if you scan the QRG code on the back of these prints, it takes you to a YouTube channel where the art is kind of animated.
That's right. Yes.
And then you have some beautiful music and you have the words read out to you. So tell me about the art, because I know that you said the artwork is 4 different artists.
Altogether will be 6.
Okay.
One did the cover, but the 5 artists did the illustrations.
Okay.
Yes. So the reason it's structured that when I decided that I would like now to take my poems and publish them, then I thought that I would like also to illustrate them.
Sure.
Right? To combine different types of art.
Okay.
Because I would like to go cross different genres.
Sure.
But then I thought about it again, and I thought, how about I do a little experiment, like I used to do experiments in the lab, right?
Sure.
An experiment in which I will give my words to different artists, and instead of me illustrating it, because I like drawings and paintings.
Sure.
I'm going to ask other people to interpret my words through the images.
Which I think is super cool.
They're interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yes, because I thought, well, whatever, because I was thinking, like, when I write, in a sense, I paint with words.
Right.
Because I see images in my head.
Sure.
And then I try to express it with words, and it comes up as a poem. But then I'm going to take that poem and see what type of images it will create in another person's mind, another artist. So that was the idea about it. And then initially I thought I would like to go wide, strong, bold, and I will basically have artists from every continent illustrating my poems. Mm-hmm. But then with time, contacting different people, like I reached out to over 40 different artists, I came up with this 6. Mm-hmm. Each of them has an interesting story, and that's what I wanted them to be, not just a typical business interactions,
sure,
but interesting people to illustrate that. So that's I picked these 6. And then I also checked their portfolio, and I sent specific poems to specific people. Sure. I thought they would be the best to do the illustrations. But once I had the illustrations, most of the time I would take them and then animate them using like simple tools on the Mac computer.
Well, I know that when I first saw your book, the picture for the hearing, yes, is one of my favorite pictures. Oh, yeah? No, and then as we did a poetry workshop tonight, we were talking about first lines. And so I was telling Andy that the hearing, the very first line of his poem on the hearing, I'm going to turn into a tattoo with my own artwork.
Yeah, well, can you imagine now how I feel like humbled that you would put the permanent ink tattoo on your body with my poem. I think I can die now tomorrow.
Well, we talked about how sometimes you'll read something and you'll read a line and it thunder strikes you so much that you just have to sit there and just think, holy crap. And so the first line of the hearing is, I'm a victim of my mind. And the picture that is on this is a woman with an X over her eyes and barbed wire wrapped around her. And it is a beautiful print. It's my favorite one.
Oh, thank you.
And the poem is just absolutely. I want you to read the poem. I won't do it justice. So read the poem. It's called The Hearing.
All right. Sure. With pleasure. The Hearing. I am a victim of my mind. I am a prisoner of my thoughts. I didn't commit a crime of being born to this world. The world yanked me out and yelled, now live and suffer. I have no doubt the world is not my lover. I want to peel off the pain, dilute it in a solvent solution, drink brut champagne all day, forget about revolution. But I can only see beauty through the lens of pain. Driftwood from the big blue sea was born as a ship one day. I have no repentance. I have no control. I accept my sentence of life without parole.
That's a great last line too, though.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I love that line. But I remember the first time that I read that, the I'm a victim of my mind. It took me a minute to get through the rest of the poem because that just dead stopped me.
Thank you.
It's profound.
Thank you very much. And today, when we have at the poetry workshop, we discussed this amazing, I think, like a serendipitous coincidence. Or is it coincidence?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. That you said that one of your favorite poems is Invictus by William Ernest Henley.
Yep.
And what inspired me to write that poem was exactly that poem, which you like.
And there's the
and
train.
And there's a train coming.
Yeah, if you guys notice, we still have a train. But yeah, that poem, I read that poem when I was 19 years old, and I just fell in love with that poem. And so that's interesting. And I just didn't catch it when I read it the first time because I was so in love with your words that it didn't even put it together, that you even have it, inspired by, and it just never even occurred to me.
Yes, and that poem, you see, I also love it so much that it's stuck in my head, especially the last two lines. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was thinking about, my own journey and how I'm sometimes I'm whatever I do is through my body and my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, they're like restraints or constriction put on me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's opposite to these two lines.
Yeah.
So I thought I'm gonna make it more realistic. That the poem by Henley was very optimistic, but I think life is more pessimistic or more realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked the rhythm of it at the beat and use it in my poem.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, amazing, like how in the same moment when you were talking about that poem, you also started thinking about Invictus.
Yeah, it's my favorite poem. But then, so here's the fun thing is, so we do a poetry workshop now, and so Andy challenged me to pick some things that were on my mind, and he thinks this is a great poem. I think it's fine. But I picked lack of money, sex, and loss of civil liberty. So he challenged me to write something.
Yes,
so what I wrote is, if I was unhindered, I'd escape to Paris, I'd romance the Dead Poets Society, and I'd fight for my desires. And he thinks it's great. I just, it's just words. I didn't, it's not one of the great one-liners.
But I think still it's great to have the workshop like this and spend a few minutes trying to write poems.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's amazing for, again, mental health.
Sure.
But also creativity.
Oh, absolutely.
And just the pure joy of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and we talked about some of the great lines, and like some of the lines that you and I talked about in poetry. One of the ones that we talked about, like in books, is Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. It was a pleasure to burn.
Yeah.
And every time I read that line, I think of the woman who sets herself on fire in that book, in the House of Old Books. So you're right. I think that sometimes we hear a phrase or a word, and the imagery that it conjures up is beautiful.
Yes.
Even if it's dark.
Even if it's dark, yes. Mm-hmm. I think it's always images. Even like for that image you mentioned, if I can go back to that poem I wrote, The Hearing.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I wrote it from my perspective. Again, when I was thinking how I'm not completely free.
Sure.
Right? I'm restricted through the, limitations of my body and my mind.
Sure.
That's only what I can work with.
Yep.
And then I give it to that poem to an artist from Ukraine to make an
Right.
illustration, and she come up with that illustration you like so much.
Oh God, I love that
Because from
illustration.
thank you. Because from her perspective right now, when she read that poem, her first thought was about Ukraine and the war was happening over there, and the Russian attacking and
Sure.
killing people. So that's what she thought. And when I animated the illustrations, we used that illustration of the person, which
Yeah, I'll put a link on
yeah,
this episode. I'll put a link for that.
which personificate. It's a personification of the Ukraine as a country, based on the Ukrainian myth and the story tale. That person is called Rusauka.
Sure.
It's like a fairy tale from a lake.
Okay.
Right. And then you will see through the animation that she is restricted, cannot see, but then gets the power from the land on which she stands on and becomes free. So that was the animation of it. So it has another layer of complexity, and I think makes it more interesting. When I was reading that poem in Minneapolis at one point at the Ukrainian for the Ukrainian church community.
Sure.
There was a lot of people over there, and the one person was someone who just came from Ukraine, and she didn't speak English very much. But because of that illustration, she came after that with tears to me, and she said, "I didn't understand." She told me in Ukraine, "I didn't understand your English words, but the animation and the images spoke to me so much, so I understand what it's about." Well, and that was so beautiful.
I think that's funny that. So when I first saw that image, it never even occurred to me it was about war or Ukraine or anything like that. To me, it looked to me like a woman being controlled and made smaller and imprisoned by her thoughts and her mind, and and so it's really interesting to me that they're completely opposite. For you it was about war, for me it was about the constraining of a woman.
But it wasn't a war for me. It was like, for me, it was about my own problems and my own personal limitations.
Right. Well, I mean, like for her,
else, for her, it was about the war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
For you, it was more about the womanhood, right?
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating and amazing to see how the art, can be interpreted in so many different ways.
Well, I think if you guys were to ever go to his website and you look at some of these illustrations, they're stunning.
No, thank you.
They really are. But that one is my absolute favorite because I think anybody that struggles with mental illness, depression, anxiety, OCD, whatever it is, you are a victim of your own mind.
Yeah.
But you've made it this beautiful fight against that, and I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you. Maybe then you will.
Do you have a favorite poem in the book that you wrote?
Favorite. Oh, it's a good question. All of that are very personal.
Well, yeah.
But that from one reason or another.
Sure.
I'm just thinking about which one that would be. Let me think about it. But before I will do that, I wanted to tell you about one more poem. I'm just looking for it.
Sure.
I don't remember what was it. Where was it? All right, I can't find my own poem in my own book. That's sad.
While you're looking for that, why did you decide to publish a book of poetry? Like, what made you want to do that?
All right. Good question. I think I matured to do that. There was actually several reasons to do that. First, everything was very personal.
Sure.
Right? So the whole book it's titled Shmechara. It's based on it's also a title of a first poem, which talks about dealing with the childhood trauma.
Okay.
So about 2 years ago, I finally went to a therapist
Okay.
to deal with some issues.
Sure.
After like trying to do it on my own or denying it or that. And it worked, right? And then my therapist told me that I should express myself now through poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the reason I wrote that poem, Shmechara. But that also triggered and it's like closed the chapter in my life of living in a certain way. Then I reflected more on my life, look around, realize that I won't be here forever. So maybe I should do certain things I always wanted before it will be too late.
Sure.
And I was in a situation that was too late for something several times. So then I didn't want to be too late again.
Sure.
So there was one.
Okay.
Right? Second, and then basically, so doing that was more doing creative writing.
Okay.
Starting with poetry, but also I have some novels I want to write down. Right now I'm working on 2.
Okay.
So that was, and I wanted to do it in a serious way, right? Like maybe make it a semi-profession.
Okay.
Right. So that's why I published that.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. So what's next for you? You said that you have other stuff. Are you working on another poetry book now?
I'm working now on a couple of things.
Okay.
From time to time I write a poem, right? And eventually I would like to put them into, again, like a poetry book.
Okay.
All right? Collection. And things change, what it's going to be. So I don't know yet exactly what will be the title or the theme of it, but I would like to have it. Probably in that book I will make my own illustrations. Right now, that's how I'm matured to do it. And
okay.
I know how I want to do it. I used to do something called Asian brush painting or Chinese brush painting.
Yeah, I know what that is. Okay.
Yes. It's a special way of paintings. You have special brushes and ink, and like it's related to calligraphy, but there's a lot of meditation in it. And I really love that. So I'd like to go back to it and use that for my illustrations. So that's kind of vague project. That's one. Second, I have kind of offshoots of or spin-offs of that book.
Okay.
One, last year, I was fortunate to meet someone who was a great jazz composer.
Okay.
And he created original scores.
Can I ask who?
His name is Tyler Lastek.
Okay.
From Wisconsin.
Okay.
Where I used to live.
Sure.
From Eau Claire. He's a part of musical faculty over there.
Okay.
And he wrote music to some of my poems.
The ones that are on the YouTube videos?
Are on the YouTube videos. No, he didn't want that score. I made this score
to
the videos.
Okay.
But he wrote completely different jazz-based scores.
Okay.
Because he's a jazz musician.
Sure.
To 7 of my poems. And we put it all together as a performance in Minneapolis last August, I think.
Oh, I bet that would have been neat.
It was very, very interesting, and I'm now trying to bring him over here to Nashville to perform in certain places.
Oh, that would be so cool.
Yes. And what makes it really interesting and I think amazing is that it's not only music and jazz, but I also perform my poems with little instruments. And I work as I feel like another musical instrument with my voice and performance to it. So it's not like I recite and he plays.
Okay.
It's like I would start solo with the first verse, then they join. They go through the solos of different instruments, and then I will join with another verse.
That is so cool.
We do it in many different variations.
Kind of experimental.
Yeah. It's very, I think, experimental, like avant-garde jazz.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So that's we are. So one of the project, in a sense, I have to do it again, but we need to have funding for that.
Oh
That's
yeah.
one. The second thing is what I love about Nashville has a very vibrant artistic scene.
Yes.
So I'm trying now to write a proposal for something called the Kindling Arts Festival, which
Okay.
is taking place every July.
Okay.
And my proposal is that to some of the, it will be a combination of poems from that book, which I will kind of link them together through some poetic narration I'm writing right now.
Okay.
Right. And the performance will be now with two people, me and another person who is a professional dancer.
Oh wow.
And she will dance to my poems when I recite them.
That would be so cool.
Yes. And the whole overarching theme of that will be migration.
I love that. Yeah. That's really cool.
So, like, imagine somebody who is a emigrant,
yeah,
coming somewhere, and then experiencing certain things and expressing himself through poems.
Okay.
And then they are visualize what is happening in these poems through the dance and the body movement of the dancer.
Okay.
That's what I'm working on.
Oh, that would be really neat to watch.
Yeah.
Like, we went to go see Dracula as a ballet. Okay, a friend of mine and I did. And both of us were, how the hell do you make Dracula a ballet?
Yeah.
Like, I'm really curious, and that's why we went. So they did these beautiful things where when Dracula would go to bite, like Mina or Lucy, I don't know how he did it, but he would fly out this red scarf and it was like vibrant red, and it would come flying out of his hand. I don't know if it was like tucked up his shirt or something like that. And then when he finally kills Lucy and he drags her across the stage, you see this red spotlight follow them as he drags her across the stage, and it was the only light on the stage.
Oh, nice.
So it was very, very cool how they illustrated this play with this beautiful, heartbreakingly stunning music and this violence of Dracula and it was really, really cool interpretation of the play. So I really love that you would have a dancer to your poetry. I'm very curious to see what that's going to look like.
Yes. So fingers crossed, our project will be accepted by the committee, the Kindling Festival Committee, and
that'll
then
be so cool. Yes,
I definitely will let you know.
Yeah,
I'm very, very, very excited about it. So these are two things related to that book.
Okay.
Right? In terms of completely new stuff, I'm working now on a book.
What's the book about?
Yes. So I'm working on a book which is a combination of prose and poetry. So I'm fortunate to be a member of Mensa Society.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's so cool. So you're incredibly intelligent.
Well, let's say I passed the test.
Yes.
It's kind of funny. Again, I did it when I was in Poland, and life was a little bit meeker. And my mother encouraged me to take the test, and she saw them in the newspaper, right? I took the test, and I passed it, and I keep my membership.
That's amazing, because, I mean, my understanding of Mensa is you have to be ridiculously smart.
Yeah. But sometimes it comes as a disadvantage.
Oh, really?
And I see it
How so?
A little bit. Because you're like, I saw a very interesting podcast about it. That basically people with a high IQ are also like neurodivergent.
Yeah.
And I also feel this way. Like I sometimes see things different, or I don't understand simple things, Like people will say, you're so stupid because you can understand the simple things, but the reason is because you see a lot of like different things behind it, and then the connection, right, it becomes very complex. So it's sometimes maybe too much.
I actually really get that, because my stepdad went to West Point Military Academy, graduated with honors, went to MIT, graduated with honors. So decades later, he marries a woman who has a kid who has a learning disability in math. And I remember having to explain to my mom what I didn't understand. And then my mom would have to explain to my stepdad what I didn't understand. And then he would have to explain the problem to my mom, who would then have to interpret it to me because he could not get it down to my level. And I couldn't get up to his level. So my mom was the middle person who could understand both of us. So I get what you mean about not being able to, you're not stupid. You just don't know how to explain it to someone who doesn't know how to understand you, and having that person in the middle. It just, I mean, I totally get that. That's so funny.
Yes. So through that membership, whenever I move, I bring my membership with me. And when I was in Wisconsin, I did the same thing. And then Wisconsin chapter asked me to write something for the newsletter.
Okay.
So I thought about what I could write about for the newsletter. And I came up with the idea that I will write a monthly column over there.
Okay.
Which will be based on the dialogues between AI and human intelligence,
Lord.
right? And because I like philosophy, and I like Plato's dialogues, I wanted to base it on Plato dialogues, and I also at that moment worked a little bit with AI. I think personally that it's a great tool of 21st century, and makes you even more creative. So I thought it will be interesting to have that discussion, especially that I think we are now on the breakthrough in a lot of things.
Yeah.
So like Plato wrote his dialogues to talk about the different important philosophical aspects important for humanity a few thousand years ago.
Okay.
Why not now we'll do it in this funny way? So I wrote this for Mensa as a dialogues like that, but now I'm turning that into a book.
Okay.
But I'm making it a little bit different. It's just a raw skeleton of that novel, and I'm putting more things into it.
Okay.
So first of all, I wanted also to have a overarching theme for the book.
Right.
You know, like for the novel, not just the raw dialogues.
Okay. So what do you mean by dialogue? Like, what do you mean by that?
By dialogue?
Yeah, between you and an AI. So are you going to like prompt the AI to say something, and then he okay.
And then I got the response from AI, and they make another prompt. It's like a discussion going back and forth.
Okay.
And then I edit it for entertaining purposes.
Trying to come up with a name of a philosopher. It's what I'm sitting here researching on my phone that I really, really like. And my brother basically did his entire career was based on, and I can't think of what the guy's name is. So basically what you're doing is you're prompting AI with something, and then trying to encourage a conversation back and forth.
It's basically a conversation.
Okay.
Yes, back and forth between me and ChatGPT.
Okay. So how is that going?
Issues. Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's great. Yes. I want to kind of make it again updated or for 21st century. So let's say when we talk about courage, let's say there is a dialogue. It will be first in my book about courage.
Okay.
So we talk about courage, how it used to be courage a soldier, courage a person. But then I try to ask a question, can an animal be courageous?
Okay.
Can a plant be courageous?
Sure.
And what does it mean from their perspective?
Right.
I kind of push boundary of thinking, and I think it's very thought-provoking.
Okay.
So I think it will be a good book.
Okay. No, I mean, I wish I could remember this guy's name. It's going to drive me crazy. Do you have a philosopher that you're basing a lot of your questions on to AI, or is it just questions that you...
On Plato.
On Plato?
Yeah,
okay.
I read Plato's dialogues.
Okay.
And I'm basing it on his works. So he has a dialogue about courage, as I mentioned.
Okay.
So I extracted from that important information, and I'm using it as a base for me asking AI what questions were asked by Plato
to see how AI would respond.
Yes. Yeah, and then
Okay.
going back and forth, and that it's about the next chapter. It will
That's
be
pretty
about
cool.
cosmology and about soul and about other issues.
So,
Yeah.
what kind of stuff does AI respond with?
Well, whatever how ChatGPT works, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
very quickly goes to all the available knowledge,
Okay.
right? It's like very sophisticated Google,
Okay.
right? And then creates the answer to me for
Okay.
me. And yeah.
Do you have a favorite philosophical idea from Plato that's like your favorite thing that he
Hmm.
says or believes in?
Hmm. Let me think. Um, I not necessarily would say it's idea,
Okay.
but as a philosopher, I probably my favorite is Socrates,
Okay.
just because he was down to earth. Like for example, he tried to be very peaceful,
Right.
but when there was a war, eventually he went and
Sure.
fought. Uh,
Alan Watts. That's who I'm
yes.
trying to think of.
Okay.
I like Alan Watts. My
Okay.
brother turned me on to Alan Watts, and I love a lot of his ideas about just being your best self and
Yeah.
finding your own way to do it.
Yes. Oh, I like Marcus Aurelius.
Yes.
Again, it's a bit would be Stoicism, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same thing,
Mm-hmm.
like trying to be the best of yourself. First, I think like as a base for anything, you need to know yourself well,
Yeah,
right?
I
It's the
agree.
very first step to anything, you know.
I think
Whatever
it's
you,
funny that it takes us so long to get that part.
yes, that's true.
Because I don't think that I felt like I really knew
Yeah.
myself until I was in my 40s.
I see. Yes, that's surprisingly, I would say, it takes some people I know probably are not at that stage yet. Um, and I'm not talking about teenagers.
Yeah,
So yes, but I think that's the really the base for anything, successful. I would guess
yeah,
to knowing yourself very well. By knowing yourself, I mean knowing your strengths, but also your weaknesses. And again, not be too upset about it. Just knowing that,
yeah.
and then knowing how to play with all of that. With
Okay.
all of that.
I'm really curious to
Uh,
see how that I'd like to read that. I'd be very curious to see
yeah.
how that AI and philosophy plays out.
Yes.
That'd be very interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I will let you know. You will be the
Yes, no,
first to
please
know.
do.
So now that's the like a dialogues is the one part of the book. The overarching theme I started to mention is I wanted to come up with something interesting. So my story it kind of like becomes a sci-fi story. Is
Okay.
that the whole dialogue? So for the newspaper, it was let's say between me as a human and an AI, and I just ask some questions.
Sure.
But for the book, to make it more interesting, I set it up in the future, in about 150 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
when I think what would happen during this 150 years, the AI will get conscious, we will be conscious, will get consciousness, and will realize that humans are really
A
making
mess.
a mess, and but not only making a mess for that planet, so it's like a parasite, and they should be eradicated.
There's about
Now,
50 billion movies that have
exactly,
that.
exactly. Yes, I know they already have that. Now, but in my opinion, when I try to think logically, like AI, it doesn't need to be a violent process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and many
Mm-hmm.
movies are about that. Again, it's another
Yes.
war, blah blah. I find it kind of boring. And I think if I would be an AI, what I would do is what I propose in my book is that there will be a pandemic which would make every person sterile, and people cannot procreate anymore. And it's about 3 generations, and there will be no humans. It's very peaceful, and then AI will work as guardian angels for every human will have one to make you basically the best for you possible nursing home. Uh,
That's a really frightening concept.
yes. So there will be no fighting, no screaming, no special effects, no battles. There's no necessary.
Yeah.
Especially AI just can outlive us, and I
Yeah.
think logically that's what I would do if I would
Yeah,
be
but
AI.
every single AI movie has
Yes.
always ended up having a violent reaction to humanity as a
Because
parasite.
people are writing this. People
Yes.
are writing this, and
Yes.
people and the writers think that what readers wants to read about it, and I think that's I like to think outside the box.
Sure.
So I think
It's
that's
an
how I came up
interesting
with
spin
it.
on the
Yeah.
AI argument, though.
Yes. Now, in my book, there will be a twist,
Of course.
because there will be this situation I just described, and then humans, every human will have a fair chance, to gain their fertility, but they need to pass the CAPTCHA test.
Most people can't pass that test.
Yes. So they will have to pass the CAPTCHA test, showing that they are worth regaining the fertility.
Sure.
Right. And nobody will pass that.
Of course not.
Yes. But there is so there's this last person standing, right, which could do that, and that will be our main character, and that main character will then be at the verge of having that test done.
Okay.
And then her guardian angel AI will start working on it. But that person, our main character, her name is Alia, or they name. It will be non-binary person. It's Alia will be a philosopher. She's a philosopher.
Okay.
And she will then engage her AI, called Chat, into a dialogue.
Wait, the AI is called Chad?
Chat.
Okay.
Chat.
Okay.
Like from ChatGPT, Chat.
Okay.
Right? So Alia and Chat, they are two protagonists in my book. And then the Alia will engage him in a conversation.
And that's where your conversation comes.
The conversation is
That's
a dialogue.
So cool.
And because it will be an interesting and engaging discussion,
okay,
she or they will gain some time.
That
and it will be
so
not going through it.
Interesting.
That concept of gaining time,
Yeah.
right, through the discussion and telling interesting stories,
Sure,
are based on the very famous book of the Arabian Nights.
Yeah,
right?
I love that story.
Yes, right. So then Scheherazade in this whole old story supposed to spend a night with the Sultan, and then got killed like all the previous virgins.
Instead, she keeps herself alive by telling stories.
So I got it from here, and
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so weird how things like pop into your head and where they come from and how they're connected. It's just a very cool thing.
So that's what I'm working on right now.
I love that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for sitting down and starting season 2 with us. I really appreciate it. I think it's a good start to season 2, and I'm really looking forward to all of your projects.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for tuning into season 2 of the Spine Bookcast. We have a lot of very cool surprises for you this season, and I can't wait to show you what we're doing. Have a great day, you guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.